Welcome back to Chit Chats, everybody. My name is Antonio.
How's it going, guys? My name is Trevor Conroy, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Have a Chit Chat.
Damn, I was not expecting that, but thank you. You also, yeah, cool. That I don't know why I wasn't expecting that because normally that's what you do, but you added a little bit more flair to it this time to your fake intro.
Yeah, it's because I'm slowly wasting away waiting for Chico to come back from throwing controllers
Yeah,
so we can post
true.
more black and
Me
white
too.
too.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. I want to see what he's gonna evolve his EV into.
I know.
I want to see it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be Umbreon, but I don't know if this video, like come if no, I was gonna say if this video comes out after he evolves it and we're wrong, then we're gonna look dumb, or I'm gonna look dumb. But I don't know when this video is gonna come out yet, so
Well, I mean, I think
who
it's going to be
knows?
an embryo.
I think it's gonna
So.
be Umbreon. People probably don't even know what we're talking about, so we should
No,
move
they have
on.
no idea.
Anyway, so welcome to Chit Chats. So yeah, so this episode, we got Brennen today. We got the OG. So welcome, Brennen.
Whoa.
Brennen, and I guess everyone watching, something regarding, or a big thing that happened pretty recently is Brennen, you got your official certified welding license, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty
For
cool.
for a process, I got certified for a process of welding.
Right. Okay. And you can kind of explain that later, but yeah. So that's a big thing. So round of applause to you on that, Brennen. I mean, it's a pretty big deal, and you're almost done with school for that.
I have an Associates of Applied Science in
Yeah.
Fabrication of Welding.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if anyone wasn't already aware, Brendan has been going to school for welding, and he is pretty well versed in the process of welding as a profession and the ins and outs of it. And I am not, and I want to learn more about this world of welding that I am not as well versed in. And I'm surprised I don't already know, or I feel like I know some because we've talked about it before. But I want to know more. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be interviewing you, Brennan, in regards to your that side of you, that side that I don't feel it comes up as much on Chit Chat. So we're gonna explore that today. So buckle up, people, and Brennan.
Buckle.
I said that as to imply that you're not a person, but I didn't mean it that way. All right, so Brennan. So I guess first off, why don't you kind of explain what welding is, for someone who's literally never heard of it? What does that mean?
Okay, well, first off, if you've never heard of it, you have to be probably under 8 years old.
Yeah, probably. But pretend I'm an 8-year-old and I'm like, Brennan, what is welding?
So you take two things.
Pretty please. Yeah.
So pretty much welding is the action of taking two pieces of metal, commonly known as either base or parent metals, and conjoining them by the usage of filler material and heat. So there's a lot of different ways that people do that. There's stick welding, which is where a solid metal rod coated in a protective flux is contacted with the base metal, and then it heats up to extreme temperatures and it will liquefy the base metal and liquefy the rod on the inside, put a protective coating on the outside to protect it from air or anything to get inside, and then when you move the rod across the metal, it will lay down what's known as a weld bead. One of the most common two really are wire welding and TIG welding. Wire is one of the easiest ones to do, and it's where you have a constant feed of wire that once it comes in contact with the metal, it pretty much combusts and heats up the parent metal again to where it's hot enough, and then heats the wire up hot enough to where they can join and causes a liquid pool of metal. And then you constantly sometimes you do circles, sometimes you do a fluent motion, and it will connect two pieces of metal together by causing pretty much the whole area to become liquefied and then solidifies. TIG is a really, really pretty version of welding, but it's a lot more manual, and it's where you're holding a torch and you're holding the added material in your hand. You're using the torch to heat up the metal itself, and then you're manually feeding the filler material into a weld to cause it to combine. So, like I said, long story short, is just the use of heat and filler metal to join two pieces of base metal or parent metal together to create a solid structure.
And so, like, what purpose does this serve? Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, why would you want to do that?
So welding is used for a lot of stuff. Everywhere. Stick welding, like I was talking about, it involves a lot of heat, and so what it's used for a lot is constructional building. So whenever you see them building new buildings, bridges, um, usually really big housing or stuff like that, and you see what's called I-beam, which is that metal beam that literally looks like, if you look at it from the side, it looks like the letter I. To make sure they get enough penetration and make sure that things are strong enough, they're welded together to make sure they stay. You know, you could bolt it, but there's no guarantee the bolts will, slowly loosen over time, will break over time. So welding is used to help secure the conjoint of two pieces of metal together permanently. And so welding's used on, bike frames. The desk I have right now, the metal legs are welded. So it's just welding's just a big thing in fabrication and construction that we do today.
Right.
So like I just welded a trailer together at my school with my team. We welded and built a 52-foot trailer. We welded and built rose arbors for the Oregon Rose Garden down the Whitaker area. So just welding is just one of the biggest things when it comes to construction and fabrication, to like permanently conjoin steel for construction and projects and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, it sounds like it's pretty important. Like, obviously, if it's used for such big processes and big like productions like that, So yeah, for sure. So like, what made you want to pursue a career in that? Like, what made you interested in it?
So, I can't remember. I might have said something about this on TikTok before. I mean, TikTok. Chit
Not
Chats.
TikTok. Okay. Yeah.
And I think I've told you this story before, but when we were starting high school, I signed up for like every computer class that I could physically take because my father went to college for his computer tech and computer science. And I looked up to him. I still look up to him to this day, but like I really looked up to him. And so I was like, I'm going to be just like my father. I'm going to go into computer science.
Right.
I'm going to do computer tech.
Very hard profession.
Yes. So I still did do about a year and a half worth of computer tech stuff. And if I would have completed another credit and a half, I would have started working. I would have been really close to completing my computer science pathway for high school. But my first term of high school, I filled out all my electives, and since I was trying to just do everything computer tech, I didn't pick enough electives. And so they're like, oh, you actually need one more elective. And I looked at all the electives, none of them really looked interesting, and so took a long shot, and I went, sign me up for metals.
Yeah.
And in
a class that I never took personally, but I wish I took it because it seemed interesting.
It was fun.
It seemed fun, yeah.
So with laminates metals class, it was like the super basics of the basics. We did some stick welding. We did some wire welding. We did some oxy-fuel welding, which is actually not really done much anymore. Because the TIG is kind of just the superior version to doing it. The only thing that's superior about oxy-fuel welding is you don't need a power source. You just need gas. You just need acetylene and oxygen.
Okay.
With the TIG, you need power.
Yeah.
But it's not really used much anymore. But still, we did that. We did basic weld joints, and then we did a lot of other things too. We did machining. So taking pieces of metal and grinding them down to pieces that would like we'd make bearings for cars or like swings and stuff like that. And so like we would carve metal down to those shapes and drill them out. We did some sheet metal work where we could make sheet metal boxes and sheet metal toolboxes and stuff like that. The biggest two things that our high school had that like no other high school I've really known has had it I mean, I'm sure there's other out there, but none that I know of.
Mm.
We had a blacksmithing and foundry, and so we had a full-on forge that you could put metal in, and then you just beat the living shit out of it until you get the shape you want and how
Okay.
you want it. And so we built like fire
Yeah.
pokers and spikes and stuff like that. And then we had a full-on sand forge where we could melt down aluminum and then make a sand cast and then pour it in and make whatever we wanted. I still have mine somewhere laying around, but I have like a solid aluminum skull that I
Okay.
made in the class.
Yeah,
So
that's
like I
cool.
said, it's around here somewhere. My room's a fucking mess.
So that's kind of like you can kind of just shape it to however you want. You're not really
Yeah,
confined to
there's
like
a pre-made,
specific
like,
shapes.
yeah, I mean, you can do it to whatever you want, but there's like pre-made shit that we had.
Yeah.
You put it in the sand, compact the sand around it really tight, and then since you compacted it so tight, you're able to take out the original piece and then put it back together. And then when you pour aluminum in, it will just solidify in that shape.
Yeah.
And then you have your own version of it. It's how like they mass produce a lot of things with aluminum.
Uh-huh.
So pretty much that was the basic for the welding class, and I mean for the metals class, and I honestly fell in love with it. I thought it was super fun, and I made friends with a lot of the older students that were in some of the more advanced classes,
Uh-huh.
and I just fell in love with it. And then
And
we
you
had
took this class. You took this class freshman year, right?
yeah, first term
Uh-huh.
freshman year,
Mm-hmm.
and then parent teacher conference happened, and my mom met with the metals teacher at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, crazy old dude.
Yeah.
Dude was, I don't know. This man had every right to be dead, and what I mean by that is some of the shit he survived
Did I
was
know him,
ridiculous.
or was he gone by like? Do you think I would have met him at any point, or
Probably not, since you didn't take any metal
okay?
classes.
Mm.
Because he was gone. He retired our sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
so my mom met him, and he was like, pretty much like, Brenn's doing great. He really loves the class. If he wants to, I'd recommend him that he takes advanced metals next term.
Mm-hmm.
So then I took advanced metals next term, which is where we got into a lot more advanced versions of welding, which is where like you weld in like out of position, so you weld horizontal, vertical, overhead.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot more complex structures and like measurements on how to do angles and placement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I still just fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year came around, my sophomore year, and the teacher was just like, "Hey, I need someone who can help me run the machines while I'm teaching the other students. Would you mind being my aide?"
Uh-huh.
So then since I couldn't take any more classes until junior year because you weren't allowed to take anymore, the next up class was locked until junior year.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a video game.
Yeah.
This class is locked until junior year.
You got to get the DLC. No.
Yeah, right. So I aided for him for my whole sophomore year. Just work. So I got to work more with the machines and more with the lathe machines and helping other people. I was good old Cody Worrell. I aided in his class and helped him with some stuff.
Yeah.
Cody was there the day that I took a chunk out of my finger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But and then next year came around, junior year, and that class finally got opened for me. I unlocked it. I bought the DLC, and
Nice. Let's go.
It was called Industry and Engineering, and it's where we pretty much took everything we learned from basic and advanced metals, and we built electrothon cars that would run off motors and batteries, and we would measure them to our biggest and smallest drivers, and we'd go race them around racetracks.
I remember seeing that. I remember like hearing about that and seeing that.
All over Oregon. We went to Monroe, Portland, North Bend.
Yeah.
Portland was the best race. So that one was like a super long 2-day event.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a super fun class, and then I took it again. And by the time I took it my junior year, I was like, okay, I'm too far into this shit. Like this is where I'm going, you know?
Yeah.
And then I had done a couple like hands-on career days and actually had gone out to Lane a couple times, which is where I'm going to school now for my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And got to see their weld out there, shop out there, and do some welding out there, and I really liked it. And then I, of course, took the class again our senior year. I started building my car for senior year, but of course, we all know how that went. I sadly, the week before our first race, where I was going to test it for the first time, spring break happened.
Yeah.
um,
Forever spring
and
break.
forever spring break.
Yeah.
The 3 year. Oh yeah, did you hear that spring break's finally over?
It's finally over. Yeah,
It's
I heard
finally
about
over,
that.
dude.
Yeah, wow. Awesome.
Spring break.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's over.
We can have our graduation ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, sadly the COVID happened.
Yeah.
And the week before my first race, and of course we never went back, and so none of the races ever happened. But I still had met my requirements, and so for my high school diploma, it shows that I completed the INE industrial engineering pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was just ready to start doing school again, I was like, well, I've been doing this shit for 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Guess might as well keep on going. And so
Yeah.
then I signed up, started taking my welding classes at Lane, and 3 years later, I will be almost done with my fabrication welding degree.
Yeah. Here you are today. Yeah. So yeah, and so like, how has that experience been? Like, have you like? I mean, obviously, like you must have enjoyed it, but like, in terms of like, the experience in college as compared to high school, like,
It's honestly it's amazing. This
mm,
this year, uh, my second year. So I've done college for 3 years. I did all my electives and my like math and writing and shit. Even though you're a welder, you still have to take your math, writing, and human relations and shit.
yeah,
Uh, but I did all that in my first year, and then
mm-hmm,
last year I started the main program of the
mm-hmm,
course, Fabrication Welding One,
right,
and last year was really good. I met some amazing people, and I got to do some amazing projects and amazing things.
mm-hmm,
But it was a lot of the similar stuff that we did back at Willamette.
mm-hmm,
Other than, of course, well, so the first term was pretty much a lot of stuff that we did back at Willamette, but then second term, we started learning new things and new processes of welding, new stick welding rods, new things, and so it was different, but we were still doing like the same stuff, just with the new process.
yeah, mm-hmm,
So by the time of my third year, by my third term, I was like, okay, this is nice, but this is getting repetitive.
yeah.
you know. But then luckily this year, this is really the year that we're like, okay, you've done all these processes.
The training wheels are off.
Yeah, pretty
Right.
much.
Yeah.
And so that's why this term we've done all these things like the trailers and the rose arbors, and I'm building a boot repair rack for a boot company, and this year was definitely just a lot of fun with how much stuff, like how much big projects and stuff for like actual companies we got to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so my experience with welding in college has been crazy fun compared to just like some of the first term basic metals when I first started was one of the best things ever. First learning how to weld and
Yeah, because that was all like brand new,
yeah,
and fresh.
Doing the blacksmithing and the aluminum casting and all that stuff. That was like something that I wish I could like repeat again. Like that was that first term was like heaven. But then like when it comes to actual experience, this second year in college for me has been amazing.
Yeah,
and I can't wait to like really get out there and get going with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean like, and like you said, earlier, like you guys, you and like a team of people built or like essentially like, welded a whole trailer, right? Like,
yeah,
that's pretty. That's like, yeah, and I feel like I remember you telling me about how you're working on that, and like, I feel like this was like months ago. That you told me about like all this stuff, this really cool stuff that you were doing, and I was just like, wow, that's like big stuff. You know what I mean?
Picture of the trailer.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, and it's like obviously you guys have a team, but like still like that's a pretty involved process, or like I can only imagine. So
it was probably my favorite project that we've done so far.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember you telling me that you got to go on like some cool trips, or at least one I remember specifically. But
oh yeah, we got to go out to companies and do tours around their shops and meet with some people, and yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a really good experience. So like what overall, what was probably like the like I don't know, like the best aspect of this whole this whole just like 3-year journey, or I guess more like 7-year, but like I'm assuming, like what would you say, like what was like the standout part of it all, you know,
Um,
if you had to
honestly,
pick one?
just really the big two ones for me would be one, finding something that I really enjoy
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to really do it. Like getting up, like even though it's school, getting up and going to school, knowing that I'm going to go and weld, and oh my god, I have a weld test tomorrow. Oh well,
Oh,
I'm doing a
tomorrow,
weld.
like literally
Yeah,
tomorrow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Oh wow. Look at
It's fine.
that.
It's for a company. They come out and they make us do our weld test, but luckily
Okay.
I just remembered I have one tomorrow. Um, but
Well, consider this to be studying, kind of, because
studying.
because
Well,
it's on topic. It's on topic of it. So
they hand us a blueprint, and they're like, "Here's a blueprint. Show that you can accurately build it and weld it, stuff
I
like
see.
that."
Okay.
Um, but so just finding something that I love, and like I said, even though it's school, waking up, and being like, "Okay, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. I'm gonna go weld." You
Yeah.
know, to where it's like, I had a slight mental breakdown, like a month ago, I think, where I was getting picked up from work, and we had dealt with like just some. As people remember, I work for a grocery store right now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We dealt with some just like really asshole people that day, and a couple tweakers. And I got in the car, and I just remember being like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
I'm so done. I'm
Yeah.
so done.
Yeah. I feel like,
Um,
yeah, like I know what you mean. Yeah.
and so like the difference I feel like in my heart.
Like when you imagine, like I can tell, like when you imagine, like because it's really, because that's like not always guaranteed. Like not everyone like enjoys going to school. Like even if they're like passionate about what they're learning about, not everyone is like always like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go to school. So it's really cool to hear that, like that's how you
Yeah, it's just
felt.
because like I know that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be doing something that I still love, and the other part that one of my favorite things that came out of this is the people I've met.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I've met some amazing people. The three teachers I had back in high school
Mm-hmm.
were some of the best people ever. I had the main guy, the crazy old dude that somehow was alive. Again, not because of his age, because he survived some of the most ridiculous shit in the world.
Yeah.
He survived like 3 car crashes. He survived like a
Wow.
pin going just past his eye, like into his skull and shit. Like he
Wow.
survived.
Damn.
Um,
Tough
so when
dude.
he retired, everyone was not surprised.
Yeah, everyone was probably like, "Okay, that makes sense. It's time for you. It's time for you to rest a little bit, man."
But so I met him, and like I said, thanks to him, I'm going down this pathway now. And
Mm.
the teacher that replaced him for about a year, while we were getting like in the middle of a like full teacher transition, and then the final teacher that came in was like my favorite one of all, and he's the one who really pushed me to keep going on through this. And then my 2 teachers in college, um, for the welding program, have just been absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Welding teachers and shop teachers are a lot different than what like some other teachers might be.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
strictness or shit like that. And like I'll never forget some high school teachers freshman year. You'd do something stupid or say something, and then they'd be like, oh, you think that would slide, and when you're growing up, or think that would slide in college or some shit like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I'm a welder. And so,
Yeah.
like,
And
when
so,
I'm doing a project and I think I get something wrong, but then I don't, my teacher looks at me and goes, "Don't fuck it up anymore." Like that's welding
yeah.
teachers.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
difference here.
Yeah. Different worlds. Yeah. Mm.
And then of course, just some of the people that I've worked with along the way. Some of the friends that I made back in high school with the car class, and um, some of the other instructors that were from other schools. They were just amazing people. And then of course I've made some of the best friends working in this class now that I'm in. That the classes have shrunk.
Mm-hmm.
So the class gets harder and harder as you go. And so my
Yeah.
class started with 33 people, and 13 will be graduating.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
how many people have dropped out over since the beginning of last
Yeah.
year to the end of this
Hmm.
year.
That's yeah. I mean, and it's really cool
um,
to see that like you've stuck through it. You know what I mean? Because I think it shows like that that this is like a really good career path for you, and like it resonates with you really well. You know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
so just being able to stay with these guys through the whole thing, and especially this year, a couple of them we were close last year, but finally being able, like, knowing that we're like the few that have made it
Yeah.
to like the next year
It
out of the
probably.
from
Yeah.
32 to 14, like the 14 of the not 14, sadly we were at 14, but once someone had to go, now we're
Mm.
down 13.
Hmm.
The 13 of us that are left, even the other guy, we still talk to him all the time. It wasn't his choice to drop out, but so we still talk to him all the time.
That's cool. Yeah.
He's still one of our close friends. But so just the fact that all of us made it that far, really, like we all got really close over these 2 years, and
Yeah.
so definitely some of the best things is just finding something that I truly love to do and want to do every day, and then just the people that I've met along the way and
For
shit like
sure.
that.
Yeah. That's yeah. No, that's awesome. So, what would you say is like one of the hardest parts, or like one of the most challenging aspects of this whole career path, or this, your time being in school learning about this subject? And I guess furthermore, how did you overcome it?
um, probably probably the ability to understand blueprints and how blueprints are work.
Hmm.
And I know that sometimes blueprints seem pretty simple, but like have you ever seen like some of those like crazy movies where they show like a super detailed blueprint and it's like
Yeah.
layers and it's like 5 pages and like you look at it and it just looks like a bunch of random shit. That's what that's really what sometimes blueprints look like. Sometimes they can
Hmm.
look super simple, like, oh, this piece goes here, this piece goes here, here's what
Yeah.
it looks like
Like
together.
like Lego instructions. No.
Yeah. But then there's other ones
That's
like,
about as much as I could read a blueprint, I think.
right?
Yeah.
That's how I was when I started
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
But then now, I get blueprints where it shows what the final design looks like, but then doesn't tell
Mm.
me anything else.
Okay.
And so I have
Wow.
to
Yeah.
it'll give me like what the final product looks like, and then maybe what it looks like from the side.
Yeah.
But then it'll be like, okay, here's 3 measurements. You need uh 5 more. Figure them out on your own. So like you should
Yeah.
where I'm at, I should be able to know the basics of blueprint work and know the math to
Mm.
completely figure out with the 3 measurements I have what the rest should be.
Right. Hmm.
Um,
But there's
and
yeah, there's
so
some challenging work with that, I imagine.
and so
Yeah.
when I started last year, holy shit, was I confused as shit.
Yeah.
I this all this blueprint shit was super new, and luckily my teacher last year was really cool, and me and him actually had a talk because when I started Lane, it was still pretty high in the middle of the COVID,
Yeah. Hmm.
and so things were still people were still schools and stuff were still trying to figure out like how exactly stuff would go and how things would work. Um, and so I didn't know that my program was a set program. So what that means is you have to take number 1 in the fall, you have to take number 2 in winter, and you have to take number 3 in spring,
Hmm.
and then 4 in fall, 5 in winter, 6 in spring.
Mm.
And so I tried joining winter term, um,
Mm.
and then he was like, "You'd be joining a class that's already done one term full of knowledge."
Uh-huh.
And we talked, and he's like, I told him everything I learned at Willamette, and he goes, when it comes to the welding and some of that stuff, I think you'd probably do okay, but you're gonna know nothing about the blueprint work.
Okay, yeah.
And sure enough, once I finally took that class, goddamn, I'm glad he convinced me to do that.
Yeah, for
Holy
sure.
shit.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and so, like, some of the things that I know how to do now with calculating weight and knowing how to do what's called a bill of materials uh, and a material list and the symbols on a blueprint and what they mean, and being able to do the math it's something that was when I first started was definitely, and sometimes still is. Sometimes you get a blueprint that you take one look at it and you have all this knowledge, but you can still take one look at it and be like, what in the fuck is this?
Right. Yeah.
What even is this?
Yeah.
And so it's like that's one thing that I'm still to where it's like, am I better than what I started off with last year? Absolutely. Do I still have way more to learn? Because sometimes I still get that one blueprint that just makes me want to throw it away. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I'm still really working on and trying to like fully become better at.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was for one of the hardest. It was definitely the hardest challenge. That is still probably the hardest, but is working on its. I'm working on it not being the hardest anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I think like that's just a matter of experience. I think the more and more that you do it, the easier it'll be. Like generally, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, from what I can tell. But yeah, no, I mean, like, it definitely sounds like very involved. Like, I think if you showed me a blueprint, I'd probably be able to be like, that is a nice looking product there.
Nice looking thing you got there.
Yeah, nice look. I'm sure when it's built, it's gonna look pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, we're like, I mean, obviously, when it comes to welding, I can tell like there's a lot of it's a lot of I guess like it's heavy duty material that you're working with, right? And it's like generally speaking, and it's it can lead to some maybe some harmful scenarios, you know what I mean? Because I mean, and what I mean by that is like I've seen like some of the burns that you've gotten and like stories you've told about, like, I mean, you literally mentioned earlier you lost part of a finger. And I'm curious, like, what has like kind of been your like take on that, and like I don't know, like maybe like what's like the like craziest like instance of something like that happening,
So there's a lot of different things that can happen.
Because I feel like that is an important thing to remember. Like if you're going into welding, like that is something that you're gonna have to deal with.
So one of the things is that you just gotta like accept is you're gonna get burned.
Yeah,
you're working with material and a process powerful enough to melt like inch thick metal.
Yeah,
One time I remember I texted my mom. I came home and I was trying to make a sandwich, and I texted her and I was like, today I worked with an oxyacetylene torch that is, hot enough to cut through half-inch thick steel.
Yeah.
Worked with a wire welder that can heat the surface of metal to a liquid puddle. Like I worked with a machine hot, like all these things. And then I'm like, oh, hey, by the way, I burnt myself on the toaster. And so we probably spent every term that I've done this for 6 terms, and 3 terms that I took welding as just an elective. Mm-hmm. So we weren't building anything. We were just doing small projects, but it was elective credits. So I was still welding with the different processes.
Yeah.
But it was just like small projects, and I took the class as an elective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those 3 classes, and then the 6 classes that I've taken, every term you have to take a safety test. Just to prove that you remember, because there is a lot of things that can hurt you, damage you, and in some cases even kill you if you're not safe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My arms, I would show up, but they probably wouldn't show up on camera. But until like San Antonio's scene, I have the most common thing that happens the most is burns.
Right.
You're working with, like I said, shit that can cut inch to half inch, and depending, none of the equipment I have would be able to cut that deep, but there's torches out there that can cut like 2 feet thick steel. With just a flame. And but one of the most common things is burns, like I said, and it's because everything is super hot. So if you're not paying attention, if you accidentally grab something, if you try to move something someone didn't like mark it, one of the things that they always say is if you're welding on something hot and you walk away, take a piece of chalk, because chalk won't disappear on heat, and write hot, do not touch. Because and like when you're in a metal shop, you should just suspect that things are going to be hot. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So if you're going to grab something that's just like laying there or left in a weld booth, you always kind of want to do like the little like hover your hand over it, see if you feel any heat coming off of it. You know, do like the quick little patch just to see if it would burn you for to hold on to it for too long.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. But like one of the main ones that always gets me, which is the one that Antonio always sees, is what's called slag burns. And it's when you're welding, if something, hey, Emma, go. I'm dog.
She's just like, oh, are you talking about welding, dude?
Yeah,
I'm interested. Yeah.
Is that if something goes wrong, or let's say you get like the wrong angle on your weld, or just there's multiple things that can cause it, but there's these little thing called slag or BBs that will shoot off from your weld, and they're literally just like these little tiny balls of molten metal, and they will constantly burn through your jacket, fall down your sleeve, and so I have little tiny scars and cuts and stuff all over my body, where I've had that stuff happen. One of my favorites is, I don't know if it will show up on camera. You can kind of see it, my knuckle.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it a little bit, yeah.
There's a process in wire called spray arc, which is where it gets it, instead of the wire touching the metal and then it heating up the metal enough and then heating up the wire enough to where they'll melt together. It's called spray arc, and it's where the second it leaves the gun, it's already so hot that the wire will just like practically spontaneous combust into liquid metal and spray onto the metal. That's why it's called spray arc. Is you're literally just like spraying molten metal on this on the material. And that's how they weld like inch thick stuff, because it's the only thing that's got enough power to really penetrate through an inch thick piece of material. But it gets so hot that one time I was welding and I got way too close, and my glove actually melted to my knuckle.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And then when I went to, and I felt it get really hot, and when I went to take the glove off, it just went and took the top of my knuckle skin.
Oh my god! Wow. Graphics stuff.
And so now whenever I do spray arc, I use a thermal pad, which is it's just a pad that goes in the back of your glove. That's it's thermal pad. It's that real silver kind of material that's used to reflect cold or heat, is whatever one, you know. So it just goes in the back of my hand to help reflect heat whenever I'm doing spray arc, because it will get very hot. And I have shirts. I always forget to button the top part of my jacket. And so like it'll be like my welding jacket, and so my shirt will show like this much right here. I have shirts that are like slightly different color in like a V shape up here, because it got so hot that it burned them. It burned the color out of the material right here where my jacket wasn't covering. But like multiple things can happen. Not just burns, just like there's always the problem with gas catching on fire. Inhaling too much of a certain kind of gas can cause problems. Right. Things are fucking heavy. Metal is heavy. And it's constantly getting moved around, and so you can get hit with something. Just last week, we had someone who was plasma cutting, and their torch was too close to the material, and when he started the plasma, all the liquid metal went up and over, and it hit the tarp behind on the machine behind him, and it caught the tarp on fire. Oh shit! Yeah. And like our whole lab got filled with smoke, but luckily the kid who caught the fire and then my teachers were smart and they got everything taken care of, and no one was hurt. But I'm just saying, like, that's how fast things can, you know, go south if like safe precautions aren't taken care of. Right. You know. Yeah. Now I'm not saying this happens every day. That's why, like I said, we have to take a safety test at the beginning of every term. Yeah. So that's why we wear our gloves and our leather jackets for welding, and we have to wear safety glasses, and whenever we're like moving stuff with a crane, we have a spotter who will tell people like, hey, get out of the way, there's, you know, stuff coming through. And so there's always going to be safety rules and precaution, and the safety will always beat the non-safe stuff like 80 to 20. But there's always going to be something. I've had even with my jackets and my gloves on, I'll have like be doing vertical, and there'll be like one little spot where my glove just isn't perfectly covering my my sleeve, and
Yeah.
one little drop will go right down there. Like it
Yeah.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Yeah. You know.
And so,
But
you know,
you're doing some tough work, you know. You like it's admirable, you know. Like not everyone would want to like kind of like do this kind of stuff if they knew that like there was a chance that they could get hurt. But I think it's like, you know, obviously it's really important stuff. And I mean, I feel like, you know, the more that you know what you're doing, like obviously the less likely it's going to happen. So I think like, you know, like it's just something to look out for, you know, is what it seems like. So yeah, I mean, I guess like the I mean, like, yeah, I feel like I know a lot more about this whole like welding as a whole than I used to. So I'm really glad about that. And I guess like my last question is just like, if like, you know, if you were kind of like telling someone that was interested in welding, that, you know, was just starting out or like just going into the program, or maybe even if like you could go back in time and like tell yourself something that you wish that you knew when you first started, like what would that be? Like what would you say?
don't be scared.
Okay, yeah. I feel like that's good for anyone,
especially with like what I was just talking about. Is that yes, there is a lot of dangerous things and a lot of things that can look dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I still deal with other people, I've gotten used to it now, but like I was the same way when I first started. Is sparks. Sparks are different than slag. Sparks are just very, very tiny, like almost dust metal, which can still be dangerous, but it's a lot dangerous than some other things. As long as you're not like sitting there, as someone's grinding material and going like, like you it's all go into your mouth or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, people will start grinding something and the sparks will fly over and like hit someone on the side of the leg and they'll like freak out and move.
Hmm.
Like people used to do that back in high school all the time, and I used to do it back in basic metals all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are things that are going to seem terrifying when you first start, or even still to this day. But you have to remember that usually wherever you're going to work or whoever you're working with, hopefully they should know like how to be safe. Like you should know how to be safe, and you should know what is 100% safe, what has a chance, and then what's sketchy or not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, so you just like, if someone was to start going to this, just like if they were to go to college and start going for like something like this, or they're going to start in high school, just like really do your research, really pay attention to what you're being told, and just follow what they say about safety guidelines and stuff like that. And because another thing you have to be careful about when it comes to safety is when you're building these structures or big things, you have to remember that people are going to be using these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like the trailers I built, they're going
Yeah.
to build a house on top of that trailer that someone is going to live in for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you have to trust your abilities to do something right and make sure you do it right, and then not be scared and have the idea that you're going to fail. But you also don't want to be too cocky, because then that's when you start not paying attention, and that's when you do one thing wrong and something goes wrong. So you want to don't be scared, stay alert.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't look at it like everything's going to hurt you or going to kill you, but also look at it like, okay, I need to make sure that it stays that way.
Yeah. Strike a balance, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just don't be dumb.
Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb.
Yeah. Don't be scared and don't be dumb. Those are the takeaways.
Don't be scared. Don't be dumb.
Yeah, I think that's just a good rule of thumb for life.
That's a good rule. Yeah, that's a good rule.
Yeah, I wish I was following that this whole time in my life, but now I will. Now, starting now, I will follow those rules.
Cuts to a cutaway. Antonio was found homeless 5 years later.
Oh yeah, well, who knows where I'll be then. But Brennen, I think that's where we're gonna cap things off. Thank you for talking to me today about this subject. It was very fun learning about the wondrous world of welding.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, For sure. And, for any aspiring welders out there, I hope this was able to, maybe shed some light on on this whole career path, and just like everything involved in it. And for anyone who maybe didn't know as much about welding either, like I did, it's a cool thing. There's a lot to it. So, all right. So that's where we're gonna cap things off. Brennen, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And Brennen, why don't you be the outro, or just I don't know, say goodbye or something.
Brother fist. No.
Yeah, brother fist. Quentin's not here. We're dishonoring him, but you know what? Brennan's here, so that's a good for me. No, this isn't brother fist. This is Brennen fist.
No, I don't like the way
All
that
right,
sounds.
fair enough.